She said it casually, like the words were nothing but air. I already got married, Dad. We only invited people who really matter. Her voice cut sharper than any blade. My wife sat beside her, lips curled into that familiar smirk, and added, "Just send the money for the beach house and stop being so dramatic." I stood there, hands trembling in silence. My daughter, the one I raised, the one whose scraped knees I bandaged, whose bedtime stories I whispered, had erased me from her wedding. And my wife, the woman I gave 25 years to, sided with her. I didn't shout, I didn't cry, I just smiled. Because in that moment, their betrayal was no longer grief, it was fuel. Hashtag. Backstory. There was a time I thought family meant something. My wife used to hold my hand like it mattered. My daughter once looked at me as if I was her whole world. I worked long hours, missed sleep, sacrificed everything to make sure they lived better than I ever could. But somewhere along the way, I became invisible. My wife started speaking to me only when she wanted something. My daughter grew into her mother's shadow, cold, dismissive, transactional. Still, I held on, believing blood and love were unbreakable. That was my mistake. Hashtag discovery. I started noticing the signs months before the wedding. Secret phone calls my wife muted when I entered the room. Whispered conversations between her and our daughter that would halt the moment I appeared. Bills I never saw, but always paid. I ignored them, told myself not to spiral, told myself I was overthinking. Until the wedding. Until they looked me dead in the eye and said I wasn't family, that my role was reduced to a wallet. That was when grief turned into clarity. Shift in mindset. I walked out of that house with a smile. On the drive home, my mind wasn't replaying their words, it was designing their downfall. They thought they'd humiliated me. They thought I'd sulk in silence. But I've never been a man who wastes pain. Pain is a tool, and mine was sharpened. I spent the next 3 days working in silence. No outbursts, no tears, just precision. Execution. First, the financial threads. I controlled the accounts, though my wife always assumed I never paid attention. She spent, I replenished. But I kept records. Every dollar she siphoned off for her little luxuries. Every loan she slipped our daughter that was never repaid. I froze the joint cards, moved assets into a trust under my sole name. Called the bank, revoked her access, and let the silence do the rest. Then came the legal strike. Years ago, I drew up a will. Everything was supposed to go to them. That changed in one visit to my lawyer. The new beneficiaries? A scholarship fund in my name. My daughter's wedding may have excluded me, but my legacy would exclude her. Finally, the gift. The one that would land at their door 3 days later. Climax. It was a box, wrapped in gold paper, tied with a ribbon. No note, just the weight of consequence inside. My wife found it first. I know because my phone rang that evening and I let it go to voicemail. Her scream filled the recording. Inside the box were copies, certified, undeniable, of every document I had prepared. The revised will, the trust, the account closures, proof that every safety net they depended on had been severed. And at the very bottom, beneath the papers, was a framed photo. Our last family portrait. The 3 of us smiling. Except, I had cut myself out. Confrontation. The next morning she stormed to my house, my daughter trailing behind her, eyes wide with panic. "You can't do this," my wife spat, voice shaking more from fear than anger. I poured coffee, sat across the table, calm. "You already did this," I said. "The moment you both decided I wasn't part of your lives." My daughter's lips trembled. "Dad, I didn't mean—" "No," I cut in. You meant it. You meant every word. And now you get to live with it. I slid the photo across the table, the empty space where I once stood, staring back at them. That's the family you wanted. Now you have it. Resolution. They left in silence. My wife's bravado shattered, my daughter's eyes wet, but too late. Regret always comes after the damage is done. As the door closed, I felt it. Not sorrow, not loss, relief. For years, I clung to a family that no longer existed. I mistook blood for loyalty, mistook presence for love. But betrayal has a way of stripping illusions bare. Now, the silence in my house is clean. The air is lighter. My future is mine again. I gave them a gift, yes, but the real gift was for myself. Freedom, and I don't intend to waste it.